Back in 1990, the newly formed Marine Fisheries Commission of the state of Florida passed a ban on the taking of Goliath grouper. The concern was that too many of them were being taken by fishermen and divers, and that in time, because of their large size, that they might become endangered. Goliath grouper, scientifically known as Epinephelus itara, is a member of the grouper family that gets very, very large. These things are very common around here in the 4 to 5 and 600 pound range. They have been known to go up even upwards of 800 pounds. These are large bottom predators. Probably the great amount of their diet is made up of things like crabs, things of that thing they find on the bottom, as well as some occasional fish. And surprisingly enough, they also eat birds. Many years ago, before they were protected, we collected one and found in the stomach then of a 400-pound Goliath grouper a full-grown cormorant. This is a bird then that was probably 12 to 18 inches long. It was a diving bird. The bird dove down to the bottom apparently on the Clearwater artificial reef, 30 feet of water, and apparently as it swam past the big concrete culvert this Goliath was hiding in, the Goliath literally sucked him in. And that's the way these Goliath grouper feed. They actually open their humongous big mouth very suddenly, and that creates a vacuum and literally sucks the food in. The Florida Marine Research Institute, their Bayboro laboratory, became involved then after 1990 in studying the Goliath grouper population, monitoring them, and eventually then, if need be, modifying the legislation then or the rules that were protecting them. Along with that then, in last year or so, the Florida Marine Research Institute in Bayboro has been collecting data on Goliath grouper, primarily by tagging and by observations there that their scientists have been doing on the Goliath grouper population. And as a next step then in that process, they have sponsored then from June 2nd to June 6th what we call the Great Goliath Grouper Count. And the plan was for this first year at least to have groups of scientists and some others that were going out there then on those days from June 2nd to June 6th and counting then the Goliath grouper populations on various reefs then and other places where they're known to be congregating. Our group then, a group of scientists from USF and St. Petersburg College, were assigned then to do a Goliath grouper counts then on, first of all, 2 of the ships that we sank for artificial reefs. One of them, the Coast Guard buoy tender Blackthorn, and one called the Sheridan, which was a tugboat, both of which were built then as part of the Pinellas County Artificial Reef Program back many years ago. And these were well known then to attract fairly good sized populations then of Goliath grouper. The Blackthorn was a Coast Guard buoy tender that unfortunately ended up with a late night collision with a large freighter. Unfortunately, very quickly turned upside down and sank with the loss of some 26 Coast Guard sailors there then were lost. Once it was raised back up again by the U.S. Navy, then it was decided by the Navy and the Coast Guard not to repair it and put it back in service. So instead, we had it into the dry dock in Tampa, cleaned up all the fuel and other materials that might have been dangerous to put into public waters. It was then towed out to the site, some 20 miles off Indian Rocks, and sank then with explosives. And since then it's become a very popular fishing and diving spot there then for many, many years. The Sheridan, on the other hand, was a steel-hulled tugboat that one of the tugboat firms in Tampa then decided was surplus, and they donated it, again, after they prepared it by removing the engines and oil and anything that would have been dangerous to put down on the sea floor. They prepared it and then towed it out to the site, maybe about 400 or 500 feet there from the Blackthorn, and that one we just pumped it full of water and gently sank it right straight down to the bottom. So this one is still sitting totally upright with just a slight list there then to the starboard side, So for this one then, you can easily swim into the cabin where the pilot sat. You can also go down on below decks and swim through the companions there then, even into the lounge where the crew of the tugboat took their meals. So that one is still totally intact, and as you're going to see from the videos there then, the Goliath Grouper find this as excellent habitat. A lot of times if they feel threatened or they want to warn you to back off, they'll actually twang their swim bladder. It makes a loud thumping sound which literally sounds like a large firecracker going off in a barrel. I mean, it is a very large sound that they'll make then, and this apparently is a way of warning off someone that's getting too close to them. They don't generally do it until they feel somewhat threatened. Fortunate to have very clear water, although fairly rough seas at the time, and went down then in teams of 2 to count then using what we call a roving diver method of counting, where a diver there then with underwater slate swims along the bottom there then for a 20-minute dive and counts then how many Goliath grouper are on that particular structure. Notice that every surface of the wreck is covered with barnacles, oysters, corals, sponges, and a host of other fouling organisms that again become food for the fish that inhabit the reef. As you can see, these Goliath grouper have pretty well lost their fear of divers. They swim right up to you, probably more curious than anything else. A barge that accidentally turned upside down and wasn't worth repairing, so again the owner or contractor towed it out and sank it to one of our artificial reef sites then in 45 feet of water due west of Indian Rocks Beach. Dr. Laura then is carefully looking inside the openings of the upside down barge, and sure enough, here's one hiding inside. Also see good numbers of snapper when you look inside the wreck